If you are experiencing foundation issues, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Tom parked his sled out front as he mushed in from Childersburg. Tom Roberts, Coosa Valley Chamber of Commerce, our guest this morning, Greater Coosa Valley Area Chamber of Commerce. Tom, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you, sir.
And you had snowflakes yesterday morning. It was a little over double digits, wasn't it?
Well, 14 or 15. It's kind of, they were moving quickly, about 30 feet up in the air with my telescope.
You never know about this stuff. You know?
Just a little bit of time difference. It's kind of hard to know exactly when the cold and the wet are going to meet up, and you know, if one of those is just a little bit different, we could have had a foot of snow. Yep. But you know, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I remember it wasn't but a couple of years ago that we had a lot of kids they left school about 9:30 or 10 o'clock and still weren't home at dark. So we're lucky that I'd rather waste a snow day than the other way around. It really makes that much of a difference. The timing of this is just hard to peg. Yeah. It's next to impossible, and I'd rather they err on the side of caution.
But everything back to normal today in Childersburg.
Well, I don't know what normal is anymore. The Fayetteville-Childersburg Highway closing for a month or so.
It's already closed. Is that correct?
It's already closed. They were when we were talking about it last week, they were already closing it at that point. Okay. They're already doing work, and it seems that they're a little bit ahead of schedule. Not getting the snow yesterday, I'm sure it's going to make a world of difference to that process. So things seem to be working smoothly. People are finding their way around, taking those extra few minutes to find their way back to Highway 280 and across. So it's working pretty well. And I'll say it again, it's going to get worse before it gets better. At some point in the next month or so, they're going to move what's now the middle lane of traffic over to the new section and start working on it. The right side toward Birmingham is going to stay the same for a while. And we did have a little bit of problem when they were moving some wiring or hit some wiring, and had to do some traffic directing atop the hill because the traffic lights weren't working properly for a couple of hours one day last week. But other than that, it's been pretty smooth, and I think a lot of folks thank you for your help in getting the word out so that people pay attention.
You know that they're working on that Fayetteville-Childersburg Highway. It's not a long stretch, but when do they expect that to be completed?
Well, this should be, they were supposing a month to 6 weeks depending on the weather. Mm-hmm. And the forecast from here forward, after tonight when it drops down into the high teens or low 20s one more time, we're going to be for the most part above freezing for the next month, so they predict. So not a lot of moisture, so that bodes well for getting it done quickly because they want to go ahead and do that. When you see them paving the downstretch toward on the Birmingham side of the hill, that's when you know they're going to be moving it over. And when they start putting some stripes on there, get ready because it's going to happen in the next 24 hours.
Just for people who are watching this morning and may not have been aware of that closing stretch, there are several different ways that you can get around that area there.
And that's important. They're taking the big trucks. They don't want them on Flagpole Mountain Road. They certainly don't want them going through the Sadie Lee area. So they're sending all of the big trucks down to Sylacauga, to the Sylacauga-Fayetteville Highway to go around. And I know that's a pain, but it allows those other areas through Grove Park and Sadie Lee and Flagpole Mountain Road to handle the local traffic and cutting in and out of it. If you're going all the way to Fayetteville, I would suggest that you go down Flagpole Mountain Road. If you're going to some point between Fayetteville and Childersburg, I'd go one of those two that are just outside. If you're going to be getting onto or off of Highway 280, I would suggest going down to Plant Road or down by Fay Perry, there between CACC and Heritage South Credit Union. Those are some places where the traffic is thinned out a little bit and you can traverse across a lot easier. So just take some extra time, be a little extra cautious. The the light is at the end of the tunnel, and we're pretty sure it's not a train coming.
Yeah. A lot of positive happenings in and around Childersburg.
Oh, absolutely. I've been able to set a couple of ribbon cuttings. We've got an unusual one coming up tomorrow. Matilda Jane Clothing is not going to start out as a brick and mortar. It's an online business, but Allison Willard is doing it right. She is taking her product lines to several boutiques in the area, and that starts tomorrow with a preview show from 4 to 6 p.m. at That's Hot Boutique. And we'll do a little mini ribbon cutting there, though that's not a permanent location, but she is, at least for a while, going to set up a pretty regular schedule, and it's not going to be the same week, the same day every week that she appears at a place, because she wants to give other people in other areas of the greater Coosa Valley the opportunity to see what she's doing and invite them to her website. But around 4 o'clock tomorrow, we'll cut a little short ribbon with her and Julie Butler down there at That's Hot. We've got First Street Pharmacy already open inside the Piggly Wiggly in Childersburg. She has 2
pharmacies in Childersburg now, is that correct? Am I right on 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, actually, we've got several. We've got CVS, we've got J&J Childersburg Pharmacy, and now First Street Pharmacy.
I knew that.
And that's important, because we have a lot of people from the surrounding area that come into town to use them, just like Sylacauga does. People say, they'll never support all those pharmacies. Well, guess what? They did, and the amount of pharmacy business quadrupled in Sylacauga, and it's about to do the same thing in Childersburg. It's a convenient way to get your prescriptions filled, but she is putting her ribbon cutting a little bit farther down the road, trying to settle in, and that's going to be on February 28th. February 28th, we'll do it at about 12:20, and she will have the Life South Bloodmobile out there, and a few other things that are coming along the way. The Fresh Off the Boat Seafood Market, he's punted his a little farther down the road, because one, the seasons change, and so does what he's able to offer, and he's just getting settled in with how much he's going to need, and sort of like that. So he's going to be doing his ribbon cutting in late March. March 29th at 12:30 is when we're going to be doing that one. But the biggest thing this week to me, and one of the biggest reasons why I trudged through the snow to get to the chamber yesterday, people turning in forms, nomination forms for the Childersburg Hall of Fame and the other awards we're going to be giving out at our March 7th annual chamber banquet. So get those in. Need some sort of biography information on those Hall of Fame candidates, because that's the biggie. And we'd like to know as much as we can about whoever's nominated, so that our chamber members voting can make an educated choice there.
You know, I noticed that the Talladega and Lincoln Chamber had their awards banquet, and they had to postpone it, or I don't know if they postponed it or canceled due to weather. There's a lot of hard work goes into preparation for this event.
Oh, it does, and no less than the catering. I've got like 6 different restaurants and catering outfits jumping through hoops right now to help us select our menu and how we're going to deal with that. So I can't imagine. That was supposed to be a luncheon today, and because we didn't know what the weather was going to do, they went ahead and pushed it down the road, and that's a lot of rearranging, especially on the food side of it, because they had to order things to be ready for that. So I wish them all the luck in the world in getting that back on, because I wouldn't want to have to deal with that part.
Downtown Childersburg is hopping.
It is. We've got a lot of things going on. We've got, as soon as it warms up just a little bit, we're going to see a lot more action with some of the buildings downtown. And hopefully by the time the Christmas season comes along and we're decorating, we can go a little bit more overboard this year, because we'll have less work to do, because there'll be more filled buildings handling their own decorations, and that's always a good positive sign. But I'm looking at 5 or 6 more downtown between now and the end of the year, and that's just an outstanding rebirth of downtown Childersburg. There was a lot of sitting, and deteriorating, and it's a lot of work putting it back in, but the excitement level created by the businesses that we already had, Jerry's Gifts, Renaissance Bank, the print shop, Ronnie's style shop, Alabama Termite, but then you add Heaven's Gold, Italian Cafe, and the brand new Cup of Grace, and we get 4 or 5 more, and it's going to be over the top for downtown Childersburg. And by then, we'll have the changes up at the top of the hill with that Highway 280 bridge in the rearview mirror, and everything will be hopping.
How does the chamber in Childersburg court new business prospects of locating to Childersburg?
Well, there are certain things, and we have had groups from the council and the mayor, the Commercial Development Authority, and a lot of different folks that have been identifying gaps in the market for quite some time. And some of us are contacting multiple people who provide some of these services, but we're at the point now where it's a little bit less going out seeking people and asking them to invest in our town, and more along the lines of just sifting through all those people who are and trying to be of assistance to not only help them get established, but established in a way that they can be there for a long time, and matching up people with buildings and things like that. So it's a very fun process, but it can be tiring and it can be hard to, I was scared to death to start naming names in downtown Childersburg for fear of leaving somebody out, and I can guarantee you I did. Like the auto parts place and the garage and other things like that. Things are hopping so much, it's easy to leave things out. And yes, everyone has heard your request for more and better grocery store opportunities. That's a given. There are things that are in the works, but that's a pretty difficult dynamic to overcome a lot of the problems that are there, and there are people who are interested, there are people who are willing. We just have to make the circumstances
That's a lot
fit.
of square footage right there.
That's a lot of square footage, and it's an awful lot of money. Just for example, they told us when they opened up Jack's that it was a multi-million-dollar investment. Now that's a restaurant. That's a big investment. Imagine that times 10 with a grocery store. So you're asking an awful lot of people, and they take very deliberate steps to get there to make sure that they have the. That's why we lost Winn-Dixie. The utility cost at that location, with the lighting, the heating and air, the freezers and the coolers and all those things, that was rising. And it's hard to overcome a rise, a steady and solid rise in your expenses without, you know, on a low profit margin. So, you know, there are circumstances that have to be dealt with, and they're being dealt with, and we're going to get, and people are going to be, I think, more than pleasantly surprised when it all comes out, and I expect something to happen sometime during this calendar year. Big.
O'Reilly's opening this spring?
That's the game plan right now, and I know their neighbors would love it if it was next week or maybe even tomorrow, because it makes traveling in the area in and around them to get to the other businesses. But there's 5 or 6 more that I am aware of that are coming.
It's almost like building blocks, isn't it?
Oh, it is, and it's like a domino effect, and there's so many different things that are coming. None of them is going to be earth-shattering, but when you start combining all the different things and starting to fill needs in the community, gaps in the community, that's a biggie. There's one that she's been working on this for, well, it's almost 11 months now and isn't quite open, and I'm hoping that she's going to be able to, but it's going to fill a huge gap in the Childersburg area because it's something that's a high traffic thing, and it's going to make a real difference. And I'm doing everything I can to try to encourage her on over that hump to open the doors and start letting the customers in, because there is a great need. And we're doing that a lot. There are a lot of things we need. Every community has that problem. You have things that a community needs where you don't want to have to send somebody. You know, people are more than welcome to go any place and spend their money, but we're trying to do all the things necessary to attract people here and fill their needs here without having to make them go someplace else. And really quick, we'll have details coming up next week on this, but remember back at Christmas time, we did the Christmas shopping spree where you saved your receipts from anything that you bought in Childersburg and turned them in, and we gave away gift cards as rewards. Well, we're doing it again during tax season and trying to build on the success that we had there. It's just a nice way of encouraging folks to spend their money locally.
And next week with Tom, we'll be talking about Valentine's Day that's coming up, shopping in Childersburg, and so much more. Tom Roberts, the CEO of the Greater Coosa Valley Area Chamber of Commerce. Tom, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
More Daybreak right after this.